How do people access refugee protection in Canada? In this video, we will explore the two key processes. 1. Inland refugee claims, and 2. Refugee resettlement. Turning first to inland refugee claims, people may make a refugee claim at a point of entry or once they are within Canada. Because of the Safe Third Country Agreement with the United States, most people who attempt to make a refugee claim at an official land border crossing are sent back to the U.S. But those arriving by air or sea can make a refugee claim at the airport or seaport. People inside Canada may also make a refugee claim. The right to claim asylum is found in international and Canadian law. This means that Canada has a legal obligation to ensure that people have an opportunity to make a refugee claim and a clear process for doing so that protects their rights. The first step is to complete an application form. At a port of entry, a border services agent decides if the claim is eligible. If so, they will provide the claimant with paperwork and a basis of claim form to complete within 15 calendar days. This form must be submitted to the Immigration and Refugee Board, or IRB. If the claimant has already entered Canada through a port of entry, they may make an online application from inside Canada. If they do not have access to the internet, they can request to make a paper application. This application is assessed by a border services or immigration official and, if deemed eligible, will be sent to the IRB. The IRB will schedule a hearing. This is a quasi-judicial process. The IRB decision-maker assesses the credibility of the claim and the degree to which the claim and supported documentation indicate the need for refugee protection. Refugee claimants have the right to legal representation, but access to legal aid varies by province and territory. If the IRB accepts the refugee claim, the person gets protected person status and can eventually apply for permanent residence. If the IRB rejects the claim, the person may be eligible for an appeal. Otherwise, they must leave the country or will be subject to deportation. The second way that people can access refugee protection in Canada is through resettlement. Refugee resettlement is the process by which people who have sought refuge in another country are brought to Canada as permanent residents. Unlike the asylum process, refugee resettlement is discretionary and humanitarian. In recent years, Canada has been leading global refugee resettlement, but this is because many other countries, including the United States, have reduced resettlement spaces. Less than 1% of refugees globally are resettled. Canada has three main routes of refugee resettlement: government assistance, private sponsorship, or blended visa officer referred. Government-assisted refugees are referred to the Government of Canada by the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, or another referral organization. Refugees cannot apply directly. Once they arrive in Canada, they receive financial and integration support funded by the Government of Canada or the Government of Quebec for up to 1 year. The services are delivered by non-governmental organizations. Private sponsorship is a second way for refugee resettlement. Created in the 1970s during the Indo-Chinese refugee movement, the Private Sponsorship of Refugees, or PSR program, has until recently been unique in the world. Under PSR, private groups sponsor refugees and agree to provide financial and social supports for at least 1 year. A third option for resettlement was recently introduced in Canada. The Blended Visa Office Referred, or BVOR program, combines 6 months of financial support from private sponsors with 6 months of government assistance. The private sponsorship group is responsible for settlement support for the full 12 months. Refugees sponsored under the BVOR program must be identified by a referral organization like UNHCR. In conclusion, people can access refugee protection in Canada by either making a refugee claim at a port of entry or from within Canada, or by being resettled. The two processes are distinct in two key ways. First, resettled refugees arrive in Canada as permanent residents, while those whose refugee claims are accepted while in Canada first get protected person status and must then apply for permanent residence. Second, the refugee claims process is governed by legal rights under Canadian and international law. In contrast, the refugee resettlement process is discretionary and humanitarian in nature.